Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Samso. Today I'm in Andromeda's office here in Adelaide. We come for an update. I think the last time we shot was a few months ago, in October, I believe.
Yeah.
Or late October. I think lots have changed since that shoot. And I think I'll let you just run and just give us a good update.
Yeah, well, welcome back to Andromeda HQ again.
Yeah.
Good to see you again. And you're right, since last October, that was just after our scoping study was released. So that was a very important milestone for the company. And we're heading rapidly towards the next major milestone because we're working very hard at the moment to get our pre-feasibility study finished. And that is due out for around about the end of April. So a lot of work going on there in all different areas that we're trying to optimize to get that down to the level required for PFS. And we're also in between, we're going to give an update to some aspects of the scoping study, that's due out at the end of the March quarter. So there we're focused on primarily on the processing side, because the scoping study released last September was identified that a dry process could give us those numbers, and they were very impressive numbers, so we're happy with those. And we always believed back then that there wasn't enough water in the area to consider a wet process. However, since then we've realised that there possibly is enough water, and there are very specialised plants available now to process our material that could operate with the water that's available. So as a result, we've been very heavily focused on identifying exactly what plant we need, what the requirements of the plant is, power, water, so on, and also working with the South Australian Water and associated people to determine if it all fit together, and then we can switch so for the PFS we can switch across to a wet process, which will give us a number of advantages if that's possible. Firstly, a wet process means you don't lose so much of the product. So when you have to separate the kaolin from the sand, remember the sand is about 50% of what we have in the ground. If you use a dry process, then in our scoping study we had about a 37% recovery.
Okay.
And the rest would go back in the hole for backfilling as waste. Now, if we use a wet process, it may be possible to get 50% recovery, which will give a massive boost to all the numbers in a scoping study going through to PFS. So that will be one big advantage. Also, a wet process is more efficient than a dry process in terms of refining the product. So although it may not give us a final product, we're not too sure about that yet. If it's still an intermediate product, it will still be a high value intermediate product, because the step going from a wet processed material on site to a fully wet refined product is going to be a very small step, and a lot more efficient with the better recoveries.
James, in the sense that for Andromeda, maybe we need to give a recap of what you guys do, I guess, in terms of you're mining kaolinite. Halosite is your high-grade sort of product, and what you're talking about here now is that whether you're going to use a dry process to extract the kaolinite. Is that correct?
Yep. So what we have, the scoping study was based on the Carey's Well resource, which is our dual resource, and that has also been expanded. So since you were here last, we had a 15-year mine life based on what we had in the ground, but now that is more or less doubled with what we've been doing recently. Yep. So considerably increased our mine life. So a lot more material there than we first realised, and that is the halloysite kaolin blend. So there we're talking about 20% halloysite and 80% kaolinite in the final product, which is just what the ceramics companies want for the high quality porcelain, which is our main target for that material. Now demand there is still strong. and it's still growing. There's been a question mark, of course, in the market about what's happening with China, and people know that we have a lot of potential business in China. The good news for us is that the whole world is potentially a market for us. So we've got strong interest from Europe, also from other parts of Asia, so throughout the whole of Asia, and even the Middle East, who are all looking to source this halloysite kaolin. So there's no shortage of demand, and so what I'm doing now is I'm also working on those offtake agreements. So moving them towards binding offtake agreements, but also expanding them around more globally. So it's not, at the moment it's quite focused on China with a little bit of Japanese. So that's going to be expanded, and I'll be planning to make some visits to Japan and possibly Europe to get those expanded out to those other areas. So there's still demand there. We also, since you came last, we also did some work at a nearby deposit we have called Condooringie, which is looking very interesting, because when we drilled there, we found some material that when we cut at the particle size of 2 micron particle size, we found we got up to 90% or over 90% halloysite material out of that. So that's very interesting, and we've been back there since and done a very large drilling campaign there. Those results aren't out yet, so the samples are in for testing. Now the halloysite analysis does take a bit of time to do, so it will take a bit longer, but we drilled a very large area there, and we found some very exciting holes with what looks like a serious amount of halloysite in there. So that drilling is all complete now, and the samples are all in for testing. So as soon as that's back, then we'll, if all goes well, we'll have another area there, potentially another resource there, a very interesting resource that could contain a very significant amount of the pure halloysite. We've also done some geotechnical drilling in the last, over Christmas, and we just finished over the weekend. So that was geotechnical drilling for the final mine design.
Okay.
And also a little bit of work on lithology and on the specific gravity, just to get the final calculations right for the mining.
So the mining is on the Kerry's well?
Yeah, so the mine design now is on the Kerry's well.
Yep.
That's where we have the JORC resource, 26 million tonnes in that resource at the moment. And that's where we plan to build the processing plant, whether it's wet or dry, and that'll be our first operation. Now, Condooringie is only quite close by. Condooringie is only 8 to 10 kilometres away, so if there is a nice resource of the high purity halloysite there, then it'll be very easy to transport that 8 or 10 kilometres to the plant as an option.
I noticed, I mean, you mentioned yourself that there's an upgrade in your resource since we last spoke. I went through your quarterly just to have a look at it. There's a column that talks about brightness reflectance. Can you just give us an idea what that means?
Yeah. So when you're defining a kaolin resource, then there are two major properties, or two most important two properties that you have to look at, and that's the brightness, because the brightness tells you about the quality of the kaolin. Typically, the higher the brightness, the better the quality for most applications. Not always true in all applications, but for most applications.
In white brightness.
As in high brightness, yeah, nice and white material.
Yep.
That indicates things like low iron, for example, which is desirable. So brightness is good. So the reflectance at 457 nanometers is a standard reflectance test, which is used for kaolin brightness.
Okay.
And then the other very important property is the particle size. Again, fineness. So the higher amount of fine particles is also normally beneficial. So what we do is we use a 45 micron cut. So anything below 45 microns is measured and considered to be kaolin, halloysite kaolin, and anything above 45 microns is waste, which is mainly fine sand and coarse sand.
Okay.
So it could be up to 4 mil. So you split at 45 micron, that gives you the kaolin, halloysite kaolin, which is then we use that for analysis, and we do brightness testing on that as well. And that gives us, so to get a kaolin resource, it has to be a high bright at a certain particle size, so it's 45 microns in this case.
So when it says 52.7%, that's 52.7% resource.
Correct, yes. The rest of it's sand, yeah. So the rest of it is sand. It's, that is the waste that goes back in the hole, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So that 52 odd percent is much higher than we put in the scoping study. We put 37% in recovery for the dry process. So you see, if we can get to that 52%, and that may vary around the deposit, it won't always be that value, but we've got a chance of boosting those our recoveries, our throughputs in the plant, and our product will go up, by a considerable percentage there.
Yeah. I guess you guys now, in terms of your journey or life of a company, you're at the stage where sort of everyone's your excitement part's over. You've got this product, everyone's excited. Now you're in the feasibility stage where I was told that that the stock runs up to a point and it comes back and it settles down, and then what you guys are doing now, and then once that part's finished, where you start mining is where the next sort of value add to the stock price comes in. Can you just give us a timeline? I know you mentioned before when the fees is going to be done, and so how that would potentially be.
Yeah, well, you're right that the pre-scoping study, there was a lot of anticipation and a lot of positivity, and we had a very good market reaction. But as typical in these situations, the scoping study came out and it was probably better than people expected, but the share price dropped a bit afterwards. But that's normal. And this, because people are saying, well, now we've got a bit of a gap before the next stage, before the pre-feasibility and into operations. The good thing about our project is that we've got a very short timescale. It's not like a gold project, which is 10 years before they then go into operations. We're talking about being in operations next year. So the whole thing is compressed to a short timescale, and the market does like that, but they are now waiting for, of course, the next big milestone, which is the PFS, which is coming up very shortly. And in between, we've been doing a lot of work, but it's work that we couldn't really announce very much because it's all material information, but it's all leading up to the PFS. So that will come out end of April, and then once that comes out, we were launching straight into our formal approval process for mining approval. So that's a very important stage. We are engaged with the government now. We meet the government regularly, and that they are very happy with what we're doing. In fact, very impressed with what we're doing. So we make sure there's no surprises. So we're doing everything very methodically in the right order. We're doing things now that anything we can do now with regards to the mining proposal, then it's being done now in advance. So we're ticking off all the things like the environmentals. Any negotiations have to go on with heritage clearance, and we had last week I was down at the mine site area meeting landholders, meeting the council, and also meeting the traditional owners. So all those sort of things are being done right now, just to make sure that we move quickly through the approval process without any surprises. And then, so after that PFS comes out in April, then we will start the approval process. Now that can be 12 months. It's one of those things that's controlled by the government, so it's a process you have to go through, and it's a very detailed, building a mine anywhere now is very, very highly regulated, so you have to go through this very detailed methodical approval process. But the intention is that by mid next year we should be into operations of some sort.
Okay.
Now that's a short time scale. So if you might remember that we have in our business model, we have the short time frame, which is this halloysite kaolin business to start things off. So our scoping study is based purely on that, and the PFS is based purely on that. But also in the background, we've got some mid to long term opportunities, which we're also working on, but not included. And that includes the HPA or high purity alumina, which is still attracting a lot of attention in the market because it's looking like a genuine critical battery mineral, and we know that we can produce a high purity version of that, so 99.99% or even better from our material, which is a very good feed for it. So we're doing work in that area as well, and we should have results out next month, which we'll be announcing. That's taken longer than some people would like. I say it's not our main focus, it's just something that we have in the background, and it's another string to our bow could be a very important string. But we'll see what happens with results next month. Then there's the pure halloysite subject. And I mentioned last time that it's a rare mineral in the world. There's not much of it around. There is a genuine demand for it. It is quite hard to quantify that demand because people at the moment just cannot get that material. They would like it, but they cannot get it from anywhere. So we do get regular requests for it, and so we're monitoring that situation carefully, and we are working towards being able to get a pure version, but that's a little bit longer term. We're also doing a lot of research in the applications, so we got funding for hydrogen storage and transport using halloysite, and that looks like it's going to be quite an exciting area because the hydrogen subject is getting very topical at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, I think we mentioned this before, I've sort of been an advocate of potential of hydrogen as a competitor or, complementary to sort of lithium battery life. But I do hear that a lot more now, and I see it in the news a lot more about the applications or potential application of hydrogen. So you're saying halloysite is used to help store and transport hydrogen?
At small scale, it's been proven to, you can activate the halloysite, and due to its structure, its large surface area and its structure of these tubes, it can be used to make storage cells for hydrogen, which can be used for transport as well. And these are storage cells that are safe ones, so relatively low pressure. At the moment, it's very difficult to transport and store hydrogen because you need very expensive containers, high pressurized systems. Halloysite is a potential solution to that. So we've got a government-funded research project in the area. I'm not sure whether you know, but the hydrogen as an energy source is actually a lot more advanced than most people realise, and so the whole of the Tokyo Olympics is going to be hydrogen powered, for example. Now the transport and everything. So that is a genuine opportunity, and it's growing rapidly. And the good thing for us is that the hydrogen energy opportunity is actually a threat to batteries, because it's not a threat to other fuels, and mainly it's a threat to batteries. The good thing for us is we've got HPA potential for the batteries, and also halloysite can be used to manufacture nanocarbons for batteries. But we also got the hydrogen side covered as well, because if this research comes up with some good results, then there's going to be considerable interest to get involved with the project, from commercial angles, and trying to develop that. And I went to the first ever hydrogen cluster meeting last week in Adelaide, and a very big group of people there, all very excited about hydrogen and talking about what it's going to do for the country and for life in general. But they all identified that storage and transport are a problem, and if the halloysite is a solution for it, then we've got something very special there. So that's something we're researching on. But we've also got the other research that's continuing into carbon capture and storage, and also water purification. And we already have interest from a coal company and from a water company in supporting that work financially. So there's also some genuine commercial interest there.
Going back to the resource, I'm curious. You've got the Kerrywell, which is your main sort of work area.
Yep.
And the last time we spoke about that, you were looking at Camel Well and things like
Camel
that.
Lake, yeah. Camel
Lake, yeah. In terms of I mean, you guys have a lot enough there to sustain an ongoing mining operation, profitable one. I guess in terms of looking outside, is there things that you guys are looking at the moment?
Yeah, so we've got, as you mentioned, we've got Camel Lake halloysite, which we haven't got to yet, but we know there's an amazing material there potentially in the ground. We've got Mount Hope, which is a historic halloysite kaolin resource that we are going to drill very soon now. We've recently just taken on a new chief geologist, a very experienced one, to boost our geological resources so we can get out and do these things now. So we'll be drilling out Mount Hope and upgrading that resource, so that'll be a whole new resource for us there of the halloysite kaolin. But I am also looking at other industrial minerals. So ultimately I'd like Andromeda to be an industrial minerals company with a number of complementary materials in the portfolio. And opportunities do crop up all the time, and I am presented with those quite regularly from people. Luckily, I've got quite a varied experience over the years in different industrial minerals, and so we've got at least two at the moment that we're looking at, complementary minerals. Now, we don't want to take the focus away from what we're trying to do with the PFS, which is our main game, but these are on the outside, and they're also looking very interesting. And the good thing is that once we're up and running and selling our halloysite kaolin, then these minerals are sold into exactly the same customers, same applications. So it makes the whole process very easy, because these customers, they love to have more than one product from the same supplier. So if we can supply 2 or 3 of the important ingredients, sort of complementary ingredients, then that'll put us in a very strong position. So long term, I'd love us to be a diversified industrial minerals company, yeah.
It was very interesting after our last conversation. There was a lot of interest. I mean, there was interest prior to that too, but there's a lot of interest, people going out looking for similar products to what you guys have. And a lot of conversation I've had is, again, from that video, what you said is that I got the impression that it's actually going to be very expensive for people to go and look and identify and develop a resource, just for the fact that halloysite is a physical difference as opposed to a chemical difference. Is that a fair comment?
It is, yeah, and you're right that after our sort of success in the market, we ignited a bit of a surge in people looking for halloysite, which is typical. And I think, well, perhaps there's more around in Australia. So, but one thing I did when I joined the company, in fact, before I joined the company, I did a lot of research to see what was around in Australia, what other potential halloysite resources there might be, and I was convinced that Andromeda and Minotaur, the joint venture that we had, locked up everything that we knew of at the moment of any genuine commerciality. I know there's other bits and pieces around there, and it's been looked at for a long time, but we believe that we've got the main areas where there's any chance of having a commercial resource of the halloysite. We've got those locked up, but it is a very difficult process to differentiate the materials, and that's something we're also working on now, because one of our sort of mission statements, I suppose you call it, is to be all things halloysite. So we want to be not just maybe the world's biggest producer of halloysite and halloysite kaolins, but we want to be a world leader in the exploration and the analysis, as well as the production, the processing and the marketing. So right to the whole value chain. So we are doing a lot of work. We're working quite closely with CSIRO and other consultants. We've taken on a very experienced metallurgist as well in the last few weeks, and a geochemist as well. And we've got them fully focused on working out how the halloysite is formed, why it's formed, and where it's formed. So that'll help us to understand what we have already, but also help us to look in other areas where there might be other opportunities for it. You know, around the world there's very, very few, and at the moment there's no new discoveries anywhere that I know of. So we're in a very strong position that we believe we've got all the Australian major resources of this mineral locked up. So now we've got to make the most of that. And we've got to be the first ones to be able to understand it properly. And but it does mean that we are attracting outside interest, because now people who are experienced in industrial minerals, they do value halloysite. They know what the potential is worldwide. So they're looking to get involved somehow. So that's also quite exciting.
Yeah, I guess, you know, the company, from a share price point of view, I guess you're in a position, as we've spoken before, you're in that lull moment where you don't have any more exciting news. You know, if you discovered something, you've already got so much of it. It's sort of like, so in terms of the way the share price moves, it's sort of flat, and then until you, when you start your next step in terms of mining and things like that. I'm pretty sure that you're aware of this, and everyone's aware, and I'm sure existing shareholders are aware of this. I know this is a crystal ball question. You know, what can you do to throw excitement to that topic?
Yeah, well, we are. There's some pressure coming from certain directions to do that because people are never happy with the situation.
Well, that's
and it's understandable. So, at the moment, one key thing is, well, obviously, the pre-feasibility study is very important because that will revise all the economics. It'll get them to a much more accurate level, down to 10-15% accuracy. Then we can start to lock in specific designs. So that's going to be a big step forward. And hopefully, if that has a similar reaction as the scoping study did, then that'll be a very positive movement there. But also on the marketing side, we want to push that forward. So get to the point where we have customers who are signing up some sort of binding agreements, maybe talking about funding as well, getting involved with the funding side, cornerstone investment. Now we do have potential customers who are interested in that, but they want us to be a bit more advanced. So I get the pre-feasibility study out of the way, maybe even get the mining proposal out of the way, but they are looking at us very closely and very interested. And that'll be another big step forward. So we get that's the pre-feasibility. There's as I mentioned, we got the marketing side, and then if we can get a cornerstone investor in, one who is probably going to offer some value to the business, whether it's in support for the halloysite gain or whether it's support it could be in any of the applications, then that would be great. But then it's going to be a steady process through the mining proposal right through to the 12 months. And then we get to the point where we're getting very close to operations. Now we're lucky that financially we're in a strong position for our project because we don't need much capex. We got the initial capex requirement identified was about $9 million, and there was a lot of fat built into that. At the moment, we've got just under $4 million in the bank, and we've got about $8 million worth of options that will probably be exercised before November, which is the closing date.
Yep.
In fact, they're starting to be exercised now, so we're getting a trickle coming now more or less every other day. The sun coming in, so potentially we've got another 8 million coming in. So for 9 million initial capex, then that puts us in a very strong position.
I guess of all the commodities, this kind of early to mining kind of process is quite rare in the Australian market. We don't see that kind of, nickel and gold and all this, and takes a while, I guess. It's hard. I always say that sometimes when you get that lulls when you want to take positions in the stock, but in terms of what really I see, correct me if I've been mistaken here. If you were to find more your probability of finding halloysite, do you think it's higher than somebody else looking for it now because of where you are? Definitely,
yeah. From what I've seen and all the analysis I've made on the subject and the geology of Australia, then it looks like that this part of the Eyre Peninsula in South Australia has got some unique characteristics that have enabled the halloysite to be formed. Now there's little bits and pieces over in most kaolin deposits in the world. If you look hard enough, you can find a few little tubes, and that's all it'll ever be. So you get a scanning electron microscope picture, and you might pick up a couple of tubes here and there. But to get a genuine resource of it is a whole different matter, and to get big areas of it. Now the last drilling we did at Condooringie, the other deposit we have there indicates that there's some fairly large amounts of high levels of halloysite. And we don't know why it's high there. It's only 8 kilometres away from Kerry as well, so I'm not quite sure why it's so much higher. So that's something we're investigating at the moment. But yeah, I don't think around the world people would love to find halloysite. There's a couple of companies in America who have been trying to produce it for a very long time, but have really got nowhere. And so the ball's in our court to get there first and get the material out. Although we mustn't forget that we have got the halloysite kaolin itself is a very desirable material, and that blend, which that's our scoping study now, is based on just selling that. Give us an NPV of over $400 million. So we've got that, but in the meantime we are working very hard on the pure halloysite because we know that that's a future game changer for the company. And I mentioned before, people are chasing us for it. You know, and it's a whole range of applications. It's not just carbon capture. There's remediation. There's concrete, and all these different areas. And there's companies who are asking for material products and samples. So there's demand there. So it has been sort of slowed down by the fact that it's not available. But the companies there are ready to use it once it's available. So we just got to try and get there as quickly as we can. But it will take a bit longer. You know, so our initial game plan is to get the blend out there, and then we'll be working on the Condooringie to start with, and hopefully get to Camel Lake, where we know Camel Lake looks like a very interesting material there. It seems to have got the perfect dimensions of the tubes. So these hollow-site tubes, they're nowhere else in the world has tubes been found that've got the same combination of consistent length of tube, all about 1 microns long. The diameter, which is known as the lumen, is about 30 nanometers, which is just right, but also very, very thin walls. And those thin walls give it the exceptional high value in applications. So we're very keen to get that one as well.
James, I mean, I guess you're in a position where you got too many good news, and the fact that, you know, I think your blend is your main game, where you make a lot of money, and then the rest will come as technology gets to you and your market builds up. And yes, I see your counter every day, and I can sense that, you know, it's not moving, but then it's just a waiting game for everyone. It
is, that's right. We've got this. It is a short time frame. If we get operations next year, the cash flow is significant.
Yeah. Cash
flow will fund all these other opportunities very nicely. So not just the pure alloy site and the HPA, but it also fund the other industrial minerals that the opportunities we've got around the area, around Australia. There's people who have got minerals that who don't know how to sell them properly, and we can help with that a lot. Yeah. So we got that, and also mustn't forget that we have our joint ventures as well. So in the background, we've got this very nice joint venture with Evolution for gold at Drummond. Yeah. We've got the Woodner one for gold, and with Copper Resources, a UK listed company, and we've also got the Munter one, the copper in situ recovery with environmental metals recovery. So we've got 3 very nice joint ventures sitting there that are moving forward. There's good money being spent, and they're making very nice progress. So those are not even included in our valuation at the moment. Yeah. So if one of those comes through as a success, then that's going to give us another big jump.
I'm sure there's a lot of companies that would love to have your problem of what you're facing. But James, thanks for giving us your time again. I think it's really an interesting project. I always try to find something different, but I think yours is definitely different by all accounts.
Yeah, well, hopefully next time you come, I aim to have some nice porcelain pieces made up with the Andromeda logo, and I can show you this is what we make, and it'll be another big step forward.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, James.